Hello, I'm Jonathan Dunsky, author of the Adam Lapid Mysteries, and today I'd like to tell you about Eyewitness by Niki Mackay. Eyewitness is a mystery novel set in Britain, and it is the first novel in the Madison Adderley series, Madison Adderley being a private investigator who's one of the main characters in this book. And I'd like to read the tagline of the book that I think is pretty good. She isn't a murderer, so why did she plead guilty? And I think that's an excellent tagline. It got me curious when I saw the book, and I'd like to tell you how I found this book, and I actually did find it. I was going to the local library one day to pick up books for my kids, and there's this stone bench outside the library, and this book was just lying there, all alone, waiting for someone to pick it up, and that someone happened to be me. I was passing by, I saw the book, it sort of grabbed my attention, I think mainly because of the title, Eyewitness, and then the tagline. Actually, the cover I'm not too crazy about. I think the cover could have been better, and I think the book actually deserved a better cover. But it got my interest. I took it home, and I just finished reading it earlier today. So let me tell you a bit about it, about the story, and what I thought of it. So in this story, the story is basically there's a murder by the name of Kate Reynolds, or at least someone who was convicted of murder or of manslaughter, and she was found guilty. She was a teenager when she was, or just on the cusp of adulthood, when she was found guilty of murder, and she actually confessed to the murder of her best friend, also a high school student by the name of Naomi. So Kate Reynolds is a convicted murderer of her friend Naomi. She was found holding the bloodied body of her friend Naomi at the end of a party. Both the victim and Kate Reynolds were heavily intoxicated and also under the effects of drugs. And Kate Reynolds was found holding, as I said, the bloodied body of her friend who was stabbed to death. She was found covered in blood, completely dazed, in sort of a fugue state, not really able to tell what happened. She has no memory of that evening of having murdered her friend Naomi. And she's arrested, and she winds up confessing to the crime, even though she doesn't remember it, because she just believes that she was the one to have done it, because she's right there holding the body with the bloodied knife right beside her. So Kate Reynolds is convicted and sentenced to and sent to prison, and she spends 6 years in prison. And during her time there, her family almost cuts all contact with her. She came from a very well-to-do family, and the only person who she has a brother, a sister, and a father, and the only person who maintains even a sliver of contact with her is her brother, who sends her monthly letters. No one of her family or no one else visits her, and the case is is a sensation in Britain. All the newspapers display it on the front page, and she is sort of portrayed as this bloodied murderer, a young murderer, completely crazy and stuff like that. But when she comes out of prison after 6 years, she has gone through sort of a process in prison in which her mind sort of cleared, and she was able to think more about that night. And though she doesn't remember it clearly, that hasn't changed. She is under the impression, or she believes, that she, in fact, was not the person who murdered Naomi, that she, just because she was distraught and completely in shock by seeing her dead friend you know, dead friend's bloody corpse, that she confessed and that was a mistake, and she wants to prove her innocence. So she turns to private investigator Madison Adderley for help because, of course, the police will do nothing about it. As far as the police are concerned, she is indeed the murderer. So Kate Reynolds returns to her borough where she supposedly committed this murder, and she hires Madison Adderley to exonerate her. Kate Reynolds came from a dysfunctional family on many levels. Her mother was the sort of woman who was not really able to love her children. She was mentally unstable, and in fact, she committed suicide at some point during Kate's childhood. Kate's sister Martha is also mentally ill, and she spends much of her days and much of her time in an institution, a luxurious institution, but still an institution for the mentally ill. Her father is a well-to-do businessman who has broken off all contact with Kate after she was arrested, and her brother Marcus is also now well-to-do. He's become part of the family business, and he's married to a woman by the name of Claudia, and he has a small girl called Bethany. And Marcus is he's a violent man, someone who is prone to anger. He terrorizes his wife Claudia, he beats her, and so he's also not someone who is likable. Indeed, none of the family, well, apart from Kate, is someone that you can relate to or look up to in any way. And Marcus was also Naomi's, the victim's, sort of boyfriend or lover right before she was killed, and then she dumped him. So early on in the book, you sort of get, Marcus becomes one of the suspects, one of the characters that you suspect may have actually killed Naomi. Naomi herself, the victim, was not a good person. She was manipulative, very spoiled. She was spoiled by her parents because she was an only child who they had after trying for a long time to have children. And she was the sort of person who made fun of people, who took advantage of their weaknesses. And she treated Kate pretty horribly as well, but Kate was in a sort of an emotional state as a teenager in which she gravitated toward Naomi, even though Naomi was not a good person. So Naomi was the sort of person who might get more than a few people mad enough at her, to the point of killing her. So that's the life of Kate Reynolds, the client, the convicted murderer. Madison Adderley's life parallels Kate's in a few interesting ways. Madison was raised by her mother, but her mother was a dysfunctional parent who was a drunk and who didn't really do a good job in raising Madison. Now, Madison, tragically, sort of continues this in her own life. She used to be a well-regarded police officer. I believe she was a detective inspector, and she got married and had a small girl, but she also became an alcoholic, and she wasn't a good mother at all. She didn't know how to relate to her girl or to her daughter because, well, her mother did not actually relate to her, and she sort of did not have the right skill or the right mindset in order to change that, in order to be a better mother. And her alcoholism caused her to one day sort of desert her young daughter at home alone, after which she got divorced. Her former husband got complete custody over her daughter, whom she now only sees once every 2 weeks and under supervision. And she also lost her job as a police officer, which is why she became a detective. So Madison is someone who regrets the mistakes of the past and who is trying to become a better person and also a better mother, and he's trying to build this new detective agency of her own into a viable business. And at first she doesn't believe that Kate really could be innocent, but she needs the money and Kate has it. So she decides to take on the case. And then she sort of discovers that the police investigation back when the murder occurred was sort of, let's say they didn't put too much effort into it because they didn't feel that they needed to, because they had a confession on their hands and this Kate with holding the bloodied corpse and all alone. So she begins digging into the murder, into Kate's life, into her family's life. And as I said, the family is simply a mess. And there are all sorts of other characters as well. And everything sort of becomes kind of sordid and, as I said, messy and a bit depraved. And so there are a lot of suspects, potential suspects, and a lot of red herrings. And a lot of things are happening as Madison Adderley continues to investigate this case. I quite enjoyed reading the book. The pace was very quick. The chapters are rather short, and I think this made the reading experience, or the pace, it added to the pace. It made, it quickened the pace, and I think it was just right for this kind of book. For some reason, the book is sometimes billed as a psychological thriller, but I don't think that's true. I think it's more of a mystery, as I said. And I quite enjoyed it, even though about 2/3 of the way through, I sort of figured out who the culprit is, but I did not figure out the small final twist. So I sort of enjoyed more the early 2/3 of the book until I became sure I knew the solution to the story. Maybe because I write mysteries and I read a lot of them as well. But then my enjoyment sort of ratcheted up again toward the ending, because now I was sort of struck with an unanticipated twist again, which sort of raised my complete appreciation of the book. So overall, I had a great time reading the book. It was sort of exactly what I needed. Just a fun book to read, not too grim, not too brutal, not too not too bloodied or anything like that. Just the right amount of all those things, which fitted my mood and and what I actually wanted from the book perfectly. So I enjoyed Eyewitness, and I basically told you quite a bit about the book without giving you any of the let's say any of the solution or any of the twists, but you probably have a pretty good idea of the book and whether it's right for you. So you can find a link in the description below to where you can pick up a copy of the book. And thank you for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.